What's going on, everyone? So we got an interesting video here by the Jebs 24. Never ran into her page before. I'm kind of looking for content here to react to. There's not much today, but this seems interesting. She says, avoid buying an Xbox Series X in 2026. So it seems like she's disappointed in Xbox lately and what's going on. And we all know mostly, it's because of Microsoft, not Phil Spencer. He's the reason why it's still there. I like Phil Spencer. And no, I know people say what they want to say, but he still cares. And the only reason anything Xbox is around is because of him. So I'm telling you, if not, yeah, I mean, it's gone. Everybody else, I mean, they would have dropped the ball. Trust me, they would have got rid of it. But let's see what she has to say here, because this is interesting. We kind of see this shift big time lately where people are just done with Xbox when it comes from a hardware perspective. Like, they don't feel like they need to own the console, and that's not a good thing, because you want a strong identity, obviously. So let's see what she has to say here. Let me know what you guys think. Here we go.
Something unsettling about turning on a console and realizing you're not excited anymore. I'm not angry, I'm not disappointed. I'm left feeling rather indifferent about the Xbox Series S and X camp. And that's the quiet place where the Xbox Series S and X live. In the shadow of my memory. I've got no real reason to turn it on. And in today...
She said, what? She has no real reason to turn on. I understand. I haven't even been on Game Pass in a long time, and I don't even think I can, considering certain swap-ups I've done. And I just don't care. I would rather get their games on Steam or PlayStation. And I'm being honest here. This is not trying to beat down anything, because I feel like, what is the point of owning one, right? Like, I don't see the point. And I could play everything. Even if I was only on console, I would just have PlayStation 5 and Switch 2. Because I could just get everything there. And I don't know, Game Pass going to 30 to me is just unattractive. So that's kind of how I feel. Though I'll always have a high-end gaming PC as well. But yeah, I mean, look at this right here. I can get 99% of these on PlayStation 5.
Today's video, I want to discuss that in more depth. It's not a video about specs. This is not about the console war. This is about whether or not the Xbox as a console has any life left in it, and ask, is it actually worth owning one?
Not to me, but if somebody else thinks so, hey, go ahead. I'm not going to tell you that. That's your choice. We don't do that.
That familiar sound. Does it excite you? Are you happy to be a Series S or X owner in 2026? The reason I'm asking this question today is because we've just had the Xbox Developer Conference, which I found a little bit underwhelming. Yes, we had the launch or the recognition or the final update on Fable, but when I realised it was coming to PlayStation 5, I was a little bit dismayed and asked myself, why am I keeping my Series X in 2026? Is the console dead? Is the Xbox just now a utility that we don't necessarily need? In today's video, we're going to be asking lots of questions, and I hope you guys can come along on the ride with me, because I've seen a lot of stuff online from you guys that are asking very similar questions. Obviously, we have the likes of State of Decay 3, which unfortunately wasn't announced at the developer conference recently.
Yep.
That's probably the only reason I'm going to be hanging on to my Series X for, but I'm also considering selling it. Pains me to say it, guys.
Yeah, I traded mine for a Switch 2. Didn't have to pay anything. Greatest swap ever. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, if I wanted to play Game Pass, I have a PC for that. I'm not missing out on anything. And that PC is a lot more powerful. So why do I care? I'm not missing out on anything. You just gave me a benefit to get the Switch 2, which I need to play those games that I'm having a great time on. I'm loving it. So like, when it comes to that, it's like, yeah, now I have everything I need. My high-end PC, my Switch 2, and my my PS5 Pro. Why do I need anything else? I really don't. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to do that, get yourself a PS5 Pro. It's like, so then, if you don't have one, then I can play all my games on the higher settings. Or if you don't have a Switch 2, get that, depending on what you're into.
I think the Series S and X, just no reason to own them anymore. Now, this video is not about console wars. It's not about technical information. It's about the cultural shift and looking at where we're at. There's no surprise that back in the Xbox 360 days, it was well worth owning an Xbox. I jumped into the Xbox 360 ecosystem for the likes of Mass Effect 2, I loved Halo Reach. There were so many good games on that console, and it wasn't just a console with great games. I believe that the Xbox 360 controller was the best controller up until the PlayStation 5's DualSense. It had a really nice weight to it.
Yeah.
It had fantastic ergonomics. I even loved the colour palette of the buttons. I really, really loved that controller. Even down to like the kind of the clicky, the springs on the triggers. I remember playing Mass Effect 2 and having a great time, great experience with the controller as well as actually gliding through that game. But I think since the 360 generation, there seems to have been a bit of a lackluster in terms of games. And as we're obviously firmly into this current generation, I can firmly say that I've barely touched my Series X. Obviously, there's lots of advantages to owning a Series X, such as the backwards compatibility, something that unfortunately Sony don't embrace in terms of their physical media. Yes, you can have your PlayStation Premium membership and download many, many games, including a small selection of PlayStation 1 games, but what I want is to be able to put a PlayStation 1, 2 or 3 disc into my PS5.
That's not gonna happen.
And play that physical media in its native state. Of course, we can do that on the amazing Xbox Series X. But other than that, in State of Decay 3, I'm sat here literally questioning, do I sell? Do I wait? What is the absolute point? And of course, I was really excited for Starfield. But
Well, I'm gonna tell you, the State of Decay 3 is gonna be on PlayStation day one. You gotta think about it. Like, that's just not gonna happen. They're gonna try to put everything on Switch 2 as much as they can too. Like, if you're waiting around and think that there's gonna be something only for Xbox, that's not happening. Your only benefit will be, I guess, Game Pass, but what, at £30 or however much it is in the UK a month, it's not really worth it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to State of Decay 3 too, but on my PC or on my PS5 Pro, because it's more powerful and I can get better performance. And I don't think Microsoft cares at this point, because it's about them being strong as a publisher, and they've already accepted this position a long time ago. So really, I mean, waiting around for State of Decay 3 on the Series X, if you have a more powerful rig or you have a PS5 Pro or even a PS5, I don't see the point. But if you only have an Xbox, I can understand. That's the only thing you have access to, because not everybody has the money right now to go get all these other devices. So I'm not beating that down, so you guys can understand that. If you see me looking over, now remember I have two screens here. But that's the thing, where it's like everything I'm talking from is from my position and from the highest level of seeing things, you know, from the intellect and just being aware of like, yeah, what's the point? You know what I mean? When I have options. But if this is the only device that you have, like, you could probably barely afford a Series S, right? And I understand you have to stick with that, but you're disappointed. Yeah, why would you get anything else? It's okay, you still can play. So that's not what I'm beating down. And I'm not beating down anything. No, I'm just being honest about, yeah, what is the point from a neutral standpoint, you know, from my position and from a position, I think, of any gamer, if you want to just see it from the perspective of, let's really think about why I need to own an Xbox. Like, what is attractive about having an identity? It doesn't really have an identity, because everything that they announce is not exclusive there. So it's almost like, I think the only thing worth having this for is if I'm just an Xbox diehard fan and I just want the Game Pass deal in the console industry and I don't have a PC. Otherwise, what's the point? I don't see it. And they even told you yourself, you don't have to have one. They've been past that a long time ago. So yeah, I mean, any game that's coming out, it is going to other platforms. That is done. They can't do that. They can't afford to do that. It wouldn't sell, and they would lose so much money by missing out on PlayStation 5 day one in Steam. It's impossible. They can't do it.
soon dwindled when I realised that the game was just made in the same boring engine. It looks awful, it's clunky. Everything about Starfield that I looked forward to didn't really land with me. Something felt amiss. I think Starfield for me is just a nice solid 6 out of 10 kind of game compared to the likes of the Fallout series and of course the Elder Scrolls series.
Sadly.
And speaking of Elder Scrolls 6, it was announced so long ago. We've not really had any updates for it. Now I'd go as far as to predict that Elder Scrolls 6 will also come to PlayStation. And again, that would leave me wondering, what is the point of owning an Xbox Series X? Now when I first got my into this generation, I bought a Series S and I said to myself, I'm going to be a Game Pass owner. And at the time, I subscribed to Game Pass and it was okay. I was enjoying it. There were some 360 games that I could dip into. But overall, I realised that I'd stopped using it because the games just weren't keeping me enticed. I went back to PlayStation and I ended up cancelling my Game Pass subscription, trading my Series S in and upgrading to a Series X for the likes of Indiana Jones, which again has now come to the PlayStation. So I have a sealed copy
I'm sorry.
of a few games such as Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl, another reason I wanted a Series X, and even that's come to PlayStation. And it's just making me wonder, again, why do you own a Series X? Why do you own a Series X? Let me know in the comment section. Now, I was having a conversation with Heather this morning, and she said that when Fable was announced, she purchased a Series S in the hope that that would come out. But what we found ourselves happening with the Xbox ecosystem is that games get announced and we just end up waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm feeling that with State of Decay 3, and again, I've mentioned my utter disappointment at the fact that that wasn't speculated on any further in the developer conference. Of course, I can use my Series X to play backwards compatibility with the State of Decay 2, which I really do love, and that's probably the only game that excites me. Of course, we have Halo. For me, Halo was in its heyday back in Halo Reach. Halo 1, 2 and 3, Halo Reach, for me, personally, were the greatest Halo games. I've not really been bothered about Halo 5. I did pick it up on launch, but unfortunately, it just felt like the same overbaked game that it just didn't excite me. And I know there's a huge culture out there, and there's a huge online professional culture of the multiplayer Halo 5. It's just not for me.
Yeah, and you know, it's because it's not Bungie. It's washed up developers that are left with the intellectual property. Just like the Gears developers are not Cliff Bleszinski and Epic Games who went to make Fortnite, you know what I mean? Which he was involved in that. So you have too much of that over there, and then you have a company, or I'm going to call them a corporation, with a bunch of suits and soulless suits, besides Phil Spencer, who are incapable of helping anything grow from the ground up and being creative. They have to buy and monopolize everything when they don't get their way. It's like you being on a service game and somebody's not good enough and you realize this guy has a lot of money, but every time things don't go his way and he's not capable of competing, he just goes and hits the buy button or does something shady. That's Microsoft. You see what I mean? Where it's like you can't help anything grow. Everything just dies and decays. They're in a state of decay massively. And every franchise goes down, and everything they tried to grab, they even spent $100 billion on Activision. You know what I mean? Or you could say $100 billion with Activision and Bethesda and all that tied together, somewhere close to that, and nothing positive happened. They lost $300 million the first year on Game Pass, and then last year, Black Ops 7 had the worst sales of all time. Bethesda's getting worse. It's like, what's the point of spending all that money if everything keeps tanking down? Everything just gets down. The hardware is worse than ever. The price is higher than ever. The software sales are lower than ever. The metas are lower than ever for all franchises they have. And it's like, yeah, something is wrong here. And, you know, you got people trying to blame Phil Spencer. I'm like, no, man. That's not a Phil Spencer problem. He did the best that he could. Yeah, he may have made some mistakes. He may have had to play that character and say certain headlines because he's not fully in charge on certain things. Like I said, he's made some mistakes, yes, but if you tried to replace him, I'm telling you, it would be worse. Like, because the situation that he was handed from Don Matrick is an impossible job. It's a crazy train already off the rails. And since that point, there was no recovery. He tried probably all the methods he could try because that's the only options there was left. And I'm telling you right now, you couldn't rewind back in history and put somebody else there and Xbox would be successful. You think that, but I'm telling you, you're not seeing the hidden hands all over in the Microsoft Corp section. That's the problem. They can always override. Whereas like when you think about PlayStation, when you think about Nintendo, it's really, definitely Nintendo as well. It's really that company that is fully gaming. It's really a company that is in charge. They don't have like these suits up there that only care about money in a certain different way. And they're sitting there with like hundreds of billions or $1 trillion outside of gaming saying, no matter how many times you mess up, we're never going to go broke because we make way too much money. Like they don't have the devil pool of money sitting there like that. And suits that just can just manipulate and monopolize at will. I mean, Sony does what they do, but they ain't no Microsoft in that sense. You see what I mean? And that's the thing when it comes to the Xbox brand. It stopped being Xbox a long time ago and became Microsoft Corporation. are Microsoft Gaming. So no matter how you look at it, I just find it hard to see the Xbox brand ever getting back to where it needs to be. And I don't mean to shoot down anything I know Phil Spencer still wants to push, because he's the only reason this is still here. But it's like, I hope that he could at least like try to do something to get it in a strong publishing standpoint to where it can still stay relevant, and studios could be good if they allowed better gaming leadership to take over. But there's too much suits putting their hands into things no matter what, because they want to see more money. And the problem with that is that they don't care about gaming. They just want to see more money. And then that just makes it worse. And that's exactly what happened. Definitely with this AI nonsense.
Obviously, Gears of War, another fantastic franchise that really helped enrich the Xbox 360 days. I have now a sealed copy of the latest Gears of War on my PlayStation 5. Yes, I know, I need to play it. But all of these amazing franchises that once cropped up and propped up the Xbox ecosystem and are on PC or PlayStation 5 or both. So I feel like I know where this video is going. I feel like I'm almost talking myself into selling my Series X and my entire collection of Xbox games. Speaking of Forza as well, another fantastic racing game, arcade vibe, you know, the open world, the excitement, the soundtrack, now on PlayStation. So overall, it felt to me like the Series S and X just launched with that promise of just wait and we might deliver. Now, of course, I've touched on Game Pass, but the question is, do you need an Xbox to play Game Pass? PC.
Nope.
A lot of people ask me all the time, Gemma, why don't you get into PC gaming? Why don't you get a Steam Deck? I'm just not a PC kind of girl. I know you can play with a controller, but I much prefer the console experience.
It's okay.
So coming back to that question, do you need an Xbox to play on Game Pass? No, you can play on PC. And I feel like there's a huge cohort of people that have left the console ecosystem completely and migrated across to PC gaming. And I think that's absolutely great, because Steam and I guess the PC gamers know exactly what they are. As to PlayStation 5, I think there's some excellent exclusives. Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Yotei, the God of War franchise, The Last of Us. Those kinds of games really help to create the identity of the PlayStation. And it's the same with the Switch. You've got classic first-party games, Mario Kart and The Legend of Zelda. Lots of others as well, like Metroid. And they really do help to identify what the Switch is and why people choose to buy a Switch for those amazing first-party games. But there's just no first-party games to purchase on the Xbox unless you're into the Game Pass, unless you want, I guess, a cheap streaming experience through your Game Pass. There's just, for me personally, there's no reason in 2026 to own an Xbox.
True. That's very true. You know what? You're smart. You know what you're realizing? Identity crisis issues and exclusive identity. Same thing. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I was trying to tell people. When you look at the top of the market, NVIDIA is number one in the world. NVIDIA is exclusive. RTX only there. DLSS only there. AI, whatever, though I hate it, only there. Apple only. They ain't going nowhere else. Number 3, Google only. YouTube only. You see what I mean? Number 4, Microsoft, Windows only. Xbox, well, you know, that's not really Microsoft, but they just kind of have that left over because Phil Spencer's fighting for it. And you could go to any other category. AMD only. You know what I mean? Nintendo only. You see what I mean? And the best stuff in the world, like when Disney was at the top, along with Marvel and Batman being with Warner Bros. When they were at the top, you see what I mean? They lost their identity. You see, it's only there when you think about that. And when you take that away, what you really got? You just are everywhere. You cooking out. And nah, man, people don't want that. So good video here by the Jebs. Cheers. Sorry that you have to experience that. I've been gaming since '93. So yeah, we've seen it all. I've been there since day one in Xbox, but that's where we're at now, where you realize, well, I got this to kind of, you know, have both of these have their own things. But now, what's the point of having this? Everything this has is right here. Get yourself a PS5 Pro and a Switch 2, and you're good then. You're still supporting Microsoft when you get their games. As a matter of fact, instead of getting Game Pass, you're actually fully buying the game, and it's digital only, and they're making more money. Hey, I'm just saying. So let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. Interesting headline, avoid buying an Xbox Series X, and then she's deciding, though I think she's probably going to do that because she sold her S. But yeah, keep gaming. Later, y'all. No matter what platform you're on. Remember, if you're an Xbox gamer, I haven't got nothing against that. Well, I'm just being real. Later.